Hey folks, welcome back to my workshop, welcome back to my garage. This is my third video in my Great Guitar Build-Off entry. And what we're going to cover in this video is the neck construction up to this point. As you can see, I've got the neck cut out, I've got the fretboard installed, frets are slotted. Still undecided on a headstock shape, although I'm thinking I'm going to do a 4-2 headstock shape similar to some of my others that I've done. The big question I want to put out to everybody is
to bind or not to bind.
So for the body, I've got the mahogany back, the walnut top, and I'm going to use a tortoise shell binding on this. I've already decided that I was going to use a tortoise shell binding on the body because I'm going to go with the natural finish. So I think that tortoise shell will look really good with that walnut once the oil finish gets put on the guitar. What I'm not sure on binding yet, do I want to bind the neck? What do you think? This Coca-Cola fretboard on here really stands out. I don't know if I want to bind it or not. So please leave your thoughts and your comments below. Should I put binding on the neck or not? If I do, it'll be the tortoiseshell binding. If you don't think the tortoiseshell is a good mix, tell me what you do think would be a good mix for the body and the neck. Let me know in the comments below what you think. So let's get rolling on this neck. It's time to start working on the fretboard. What I've got is this really nice piece of Coca-Cola. I think that's going to go really nice with that walnut once everything is done. So already with this fretboard, it's thickness down to 1/4 inch. So what I'm going to have to do now is just go through, mark the center line, get the fret slots cut into it, get a rough cut of the fretboard before I glue it onto the neck. So the first thing that I want to do here is just find the center line and mark the center line on the fretboard. I've already trued up the edge on this when I did the thicknessing on it, so I know I've got a good straight edge on it. And I'm just kind of scribing this center line into the wood using the calipers. And then once that's done, I'll just use my straight edge to connect the two lines. I'm definitely going to use this side of the fretboard because this is going to be the upside. Because it does have a little bit nicer grain pattern to it. This other side's got some dark bits on it that I think kind of distract from it a little bit. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that this is my first fret and nut line up here, and that way it flows back like that. I'm thinking that's going to be the nicer of the two. That puts that longer grain pattern there across the bottom of the fretboard, or the more interesting part of it along the bottom of the fretboard. I think that's going to look good. Okay, so to attach the fretboard, all I'm going to do is just a little bit of super glue and masking tape. You can run some masking tape right down the center and down the center of the board. Like I said, I want to make sure that I've got it centered on here. Get that pressed down, and I'll be ready to start cutting some fret slots. Alright, so I've got my guide set up. These rollers right here. Sets for the width of the blade to where it makes sure the saw stays nice and straight. And it also has depth stops for how deep I cut into the fretboard. So I went ahead and tested it out on where I'm going to cut the nut line anyway. So now that we're ready to start rolling, we'll start getting some fret slots cut. And I more than likely will have to make some adjustments to these after I radius them. I'll probably have to trim a little bit at the edge. Also, if I do binding on it, that's going to play a part in it as well. So the fret slots probably get deepened a little bit as I go along, but this puts them very close to where they need to be. so all the sluts are cut. I went ahead and cut 24 on it. I know I won't be using the 24th fret. I'm probably going to use the 23rd fret. I'll probably keep it, and then the end of the fretboard will probably be around the 24th fret area. I got to get it on there and decide, and also decide if I'm going to do binding or not. Because if I'm going to do binding around it, that's going to shorten it up just a little bit more as well. Also, you'll notice I save all the dust. I've got all the dust piled up here. This is going to be useful for putting around the inlays when I decide what inlays are going to go in, and also to kind of fill any gaps or anything like that. If I decide not to do binding on it, then I can fill in the ends of the fret slots and make it look a little better when it's all done. So now it's just a matter of peeling this off the board. So I'm getting ready to glue the fretboard on. In preparation for that, what I want to do is I want to get a couple index marks drilled first. That way when I go to clamp it down, I know it doesn't slip. So what I've done is I've got it lined up. It's been rough cut out to the lines. I've got it lined up on the center lines. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dry clamp it in place. I want to make sure nothing moves on me when I do this. Got my nut lined up. I got the center line lined up at the top and at the bottom. Alright, so now that it's on there straight, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take, I've got a 1/16 inch drill bit, and I'm going to drill a couple holes, index holes, right on the fret lines. But I want to make sure that I'm close, not into my truss rod cavity, but far enough away from the edge that I'm not going to show this hole once I start filing the neck. So what I'm going to do is the first one, I'm just going to put here at around, what, the 19th, 20th fret. Make sure I'm off the center line, and that way I'm in the heel area of this one, so I know I'm not going to end up carving through this one. So what I'll do now is I can just take this toothpick, put it in the hole, and that's going to properly index for my fretboard. So in preparation for gluing the fretboard on, what I've made sure is I've made sure my neck heel and the body joint are good, because once I glue the fretboard on, I'm not going to be able to get as much access in here. So I went and double checked, made sure I've got a good fit up against the body with the tenon. I've got my index pins in the neck. Don't forget your truss rod. What I like to do is I like to put just a touch of glue on the truss rod, not to glue it in or anything, but just to kind of keep it from rattling. So I use just a couple drops of like a clear RTV type glue, something that's going to dry flexible. And then I want to get my truss rod installed and set to where I need it. And then I just like to take a piece of tape, kind of mask over, not really to mask over the truss rod, but just to kind of keep it covered for a minute while I'm putting the glue in. That way I know that I'm not getting a bunch of glue down in my truss rod slot. Then what I'll do is, after I get my glue spread around on this, then I'll peel this strip off before I make the final glue on my neck. There we go. Go, glue spread out nice. time to unclamp this. It's been 24 hours since we glued it up, so let's unclamp it and see what we got. Alright, this looks really good. We've got good squeeze out all the way down. But yeah, that came out looking really good. Next step is going to be to route the edges smooth. Alright everybody, well that pretty much wraps up this video. In the next video I'll be moving on to fastening the neck, putting the neck carve on, getting the frets installed, deciding on the binding issue if we're going to go that route. So please, if you like what I'm doing, click like, click subscribe, leave a comment below, let me know what you think. And until next time, take care.